Hey everyone, welcome to Stuff I Never Learned from a School Book. If you are looking at the bearded one, it's Monday, 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, 2 out in Hawaii, 6 a.m. tomorrow out in Indonesia, and about 9 a.m. out in Australia. Welcome everybody to Stuff I Never Learned from a School Book. Again, my name is Tom Springer. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you enjoy the show. If you are a repeat offender, also known as family, welcome back. I'm just kind of throwing stuff up right now as we're talking really quick, just to get everything running. But I know it's been a while since I've been on here. I have been out and about roaming the neighborhoods and came back after doing a nice little trip down to Broadhead or up to Broadhead, Wisconsin with Nikki, where we did where we went to the Broadhead Manor. They did a big paranormal rock down, so it was pretty nice. We'll talk more about that later, but right now I want to go ahead and bring in my guest because y'all have seen the advertisements up for about a week, and you know that I'm going to go ahead and bring in Father Ken Torres. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. We'll say hi, and we'll just start yapping away. So everyone say hi to Father Ken. Let me bring him in. There he is.
Hey, everyone. What's going on? How you doing, Tom? How are you doing, sir?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing well.
That's good. So just a fair statement. So I learned about you. I always like to tell people how I found out who you were and stuff like that, how we met, basically. And I met you, well, I literally just met you 10 minutes ago, but
Yeah.
chatting and stuff like that, I actually knew about you through Bill Slevin, from the, because he's my PERS leader for the Paranormal Society. And then I was invited on to come to take part in the Warren Society that's going on right now too. And found out that you're a part of it and a couple other people are part of it. And I was really excited to be asked on. So I was really happy that you agreed to come on my show because I've heard a lot about you, but I haven't had the chance to talk to you. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. I'm glad that everybody's popping in to say hi. So, see Rosie's popping in to say hi, Father Ken.
Hey, Rosie, how are you?
Nikki's popping in to say hi, Father Ken. This is my wife, so she'll be doing a lot of the talking for a lot of people in here. So I don't know what chat you'll see as far as your end, but like I said, I'll throw them up if need be. But But other than that, welcome to the show. Thank you for agreeing to come on. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Since we kind of talked about it and I got you on my schedule, Nikki knows. I'm like, all right, I got Father Ken on. We got to talk. All right, we got Father Ken on. Let's make time go faster. But thank you for coming on, and I want you to do me a favor. And for those who do not know who you are, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and how you got involved into doing what you do.
So, my name is Ken Torres, Father Ken Torres. I am a medically retired U.S. Marine Corps veteran. I worked with a couple of alphabet soup agencies. We were talking in the background.
Yep.
I'm involved with the Warren Society. I'm involved with the Holy Sword Apostolate with Father Bob Bailey, amongst other things as well. There really isn't much to know about me. Without trying to sound egotistical. I became a man of the cloth about 5 years ago, going through seminary school, getting my master's and my doctoral degree. I went into formation and I became an Orthodox priest. At that time, I was part of a jurisdiction that was pretty much like an old Catholic rite. And I was like, well, that really wasn't for me. And so I went through the formation process and I became a canonical priest within the jurisdiction of the Australian and American Greek Orthodox Church. So, basically that's, what I am. I assist people. I have a master's of pastoral counseling. So I do a lot of chaplaincy. I do a lot of coaching, but more importantly, I do a lot of assessment in the background. I have a lot of teams that reach out to me, asking me for help. And, I try to give them a firm and fair answer without overcomplicating things, without being too religious or anything of that nature. That's pretty much who I am.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Sounds like you're really busy all the time.
Well, as of lately, the past few weeks, I've kind of just taken some downtime because I ended up getting sick and a fever with my wife. We both got sick a few weeks ago, and so I think today was like the very first time that I felt really good in such a long time.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm glad to be here. You know what I mean? I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a part of this podcast. For me, it's always a blessing just being invited, to these things. because you hear a lot of, here I get a lot of hate. Like if you open up my messenger, I get so much hate, and I get emails, I get threats, and all that sort of stuff. So I mean, that's part of life, that's part of business.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's and that's because I just in the back chat you and I had earlier, I told you
Yeah.
that I was raised Pentecostal Christian because my grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher, and it always amazes me how many religious leaders get hate mail.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
like, what are you thinking here, people?
Well, I mean, it happens, right? I think there's consensus when someone hears priest, they automatically think like Roman Catholic. But most people don't realize that there are three major branches of Christianity: Orthodoxy, Catholicism, and Protestantism. And so I'm an Orthodox Christian.
Right.
So I'm an Orthodox priest. So, the church has two lungs, the East and the West. And then as well as the Protestant side, we have many denominations like Episcopalian, Lutheran, Presbyterian. They also have their form of priests.
Right.
But oftentimes I get compared to like a Roman Catholic priest.
Right.
The process is a little different, within both rites of the church. We go to seminary school, we become deacons. And so with us, within Holy Orthodoxy, our jurisdictions are smaller, our churches are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And so most of the time we start off as missionary churches, as missionary priests to build physical churches.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I've been doing. I travel the country, and I'll try to give homilies, I'll try to give lectures, so that I can eventually, open up a physical church, planting seeds, so, and that's just the way Orthodoxy is. It's just always planting seeds.
Right. So did you do any of the missionary work overseas as well?
I have not done any missionary work overseas at all. A lot of the missionary work that I've done is here locally, helping out with Planned Parenthood, creating food banks, creating programs for homeless people, trying to get food and resources and sustenance for those, mostly advocating for veterans because I'm a veteran myself.
Right.
So I use my platform and my credentials to help veterans, with recovery, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, try to get them counseling, try to get them rehabilitation, going in and vouching for them in front of the judge, trying to get them to, let them understand that there's trauma in the brain. And although the actions are not excusable, but there's a reason why these things are happening.
Right.
And so that's kind of the missionary work that I've been focused on.
Well, that's great. Yeah. And I'm sure that they appreciate that. I mean, I know I appreciate it. And because I'm a vet too, we talked about that. So I kind of know how that goes through. But no, that's really nice that you do that. So how long have you been, I missed it at the beginning because I was also reading some of the messages, but how long have you been doing this?
5 years.
For 5 years?
I've been an Orthodox priest for 5 years.
Okay.
I have been involved in the paranormal for quite some time now, about 12, 13 years.
Okay.
Not so much as an investigator, but more as an assessor watching. Before this, I did have a Protestant background. I was Pentecostal as well. I grew up Pentecostal and Baptist. And so even throughout that time, I would always do like youth ministry. And I was especially involved in the deliverance ministry of the church as well. But something clicked while going through seminary school. I fell in love with the theology. I fell in love with the liturgy. I fell in love with the tradition that the church had to offer. I like routine, especially for us military guys.
Right.
It's really nice to have some sort of structure.
Yeah.
And so I found my happiness within the apostolic churches. Nothing against, our Protestant brothers. I found my home. And so that's my main focus. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And I understand that earlier we were talking about how they kind of lump you into instantly being the Catholicism side of things, the Roman
right.
Catholic.
Yeah.
And I have this discussion, surprisingly enough, because I'm kind of that one that talks everything and anything. And religion is one of those that comes up. And one of the things that seems to come up a lot is they talk about this, Roman Catholic. And I'm like, well, and I had to explain to them that there are differences because they instantly go, and I go, and for me, and you'll understand this too, being a veteran person, and Stuart is on here too. Stuart Gesselman's on here, and he's also a prior military. But it's like when everyone calls a shoulder-launched man pad a stinger. Not all of them are stingers, but they all lump them into the same title because that's all what they know. It's a stinger. No, it's not. It's it's
Yeah.
an SA6, it's an SA9, whatever. But I
Right.
had to explain to the military folks that way. No.
Yeah.
Religion does not work this way. It works like
Yeah. 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 I mean, religion, especially Christianity, encompasses so many paths. I mean, there's a lot
right.
of different Christian denominations, and that falls within the Protestant side. And then we have the apostolic churches, which were
Mhm.
handed down, which we have the apostolic succession through the apostles through Christ.
Right.
And so throughout that mission, the Grand Commission, we have different apostles that went to the east and went to the west. And so for the first 1,000 years, the Orthodox and the Roman Catholic Church were one.
Right.
And so there was an issue with the filioque. The filioque was part of the Nicene Creed. And so the filioque was a couple of syllables that were added, and from the Son. The Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son.
Mhm.
And so that kind of changed the dynamics for the Orthodox Church, because there was not supposed to be any change, or not even one syllable added to the Nicene Creed. And so within 800, that became a problem. And so in 1054, there was a great schism. The East and the West separated.
Separated,
Not only that, though, it's because of the papal infallibility. We believe that Christ is the vicar of the church. And so with the Pope stepping in that role, we feel within Holy Orthodoxy that that's not right. An infallible person is not existent.
Right.
Only Christ is. Anyway, that's a deeper theological debate that I try to teach in classes.
That's okay. The audience here knows that we go through.
Yeah.
We call them squirrel moments, to where we learn a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
Because I mean, at some point during here, I'm sure we're going to end up in a multiple universe talk somewhere. But
Right.
so they're kind of used to it. But so I do kind of want to touch back on something when you said you're on the paranormal side of things,
Right.
which is interesting, because that kind of leads into some of the beliefs that some of the religions don't have.
Right.
So
Right.
so you're having to balance this little walk here of what you know from the paranormal, what you saw when you were in the paranormal, everything else, based off of what your faith teaches you now.
Right.
So
And that's an interesting dichotomy, because within Holy Orthodoxy, we're more mystical. We focus more on the mysteries. And so within Holy Orthodoxy, we understand that there's a supernatural realm. I don't necessarily call it paranormal, because paranormal is like, cryptids and UFOs, but we believe in a supernatural. We know that there are things out there. We know that there are spirits, that there are angels. It's the divine. And so, we're not surprised at all by any of the things that come across our desk, so to speak. People experience spirits, that sort of thing. We understand that there is this line, right? We understand that there's a spirituality. And so we approach it through the lens of our faith, because, within the church tradition, it's thousands of years of tradition that have been passed down to us with teachings and example and written documents on how to deal with the supernatural. And so, we did the very best that we can. And I understand that not everybody is of the faith. And so I try to guide people humbly, patiently, and lovingly, and letting them know, hey, from our perspective, this is how we view things. This is how we do things. If you'd like, you can try these sorts of things. You can do a prayer, meditation. And if you don't want to do that, then, I might have some other resources, that might be able to help you in a different way.
right.
I think, for us, you go to school and you study for so long, and this is the life, right? So for me to give advice that's not within my faith is unethical.
Right.
So what I would do is I'd send somebody else. Like, I'll never compromise my faith and my beliefs, but I will be understanding, accepting, and I understand that there are different experiences, and there are different systems that might be able to help others in a way that we might not be able to.
Right. So Stuart has a question. He asks, does Father Ken use the King James Bible or another version?
So we use the Orthodox Study Bible. And so the Orthodox Study Bible has like the Book of Maccabees and a couple of other different things. So we have Maccabees. What else do we have in here? Obadiah. We've got a couple of different ones, a couple of canons that are a little different. So I think we have 77 books total. As far as the Protestant Bible has 66. And that was done, I believe, with the Council of Constantinople, when the church fathers compiled the Bible, compiled the scripture. We had the Protestant Reformation I believe it was in 1320 by Martin Luther. I can't think. And so Martin Luther was a former Catholic priest who protested some of the things that the Catholic Church was doing. And so he gave over a 600-page treatise and put it at the front doorstep of the Vatican, right? The Pope's home.
Right.
And so throughout that system, throughout that time, the church compiled the canons, but we also gave our Protestant brothers and sisters their versions of the canon that fit their faith.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. So, and because this is the first one that always comes to my mind, of course, is the Book of Enoch. A lot of people recognize right off the bat because that's where
the Apocrypha.
Yeah, that's what they talk about.
That's actually in the Ethiopian Bible.
Is it?
So, yes. Most people don't realize that Catholicism and Orthodoxy touched Ethiopia first before it touched Europe. So Christianity is a lot older in Ethiopia than it is, here in Europe and the United States. Most people would think that, Catholicism and Orthodoxy was like, oh, well, it's in Europe. No, it was actually Ethiopia.
Oh, very cool. So I'm going to take a quick second, really quick. I just want to, for some reason, there's a friend of mine who pops in this is her morning before she starts going to work.
Oh, good morning. Good morning.
She pops in to say good morning, but I couldn't see her show. I couldn't post up her site. But she also replied, I'm literally just learning about that. So she's just learning about what you were talking about. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Christian theology, is really beautiful in a sense, right? Obviously there are sensitive topics where people are upset by the church, and people have been hurt by the church, but unfortunately that's just man, right? For us, Christ is perfect, and
right.
I feel bad, and I pray for those who have been hurt. But I mean, there's a beautiful tradition within Christianity. There's different expressions of the faith. Like even within Roman Catholicism, they also have their own version of the Eastern Rite, which they would call Orthodoxy as well. But it's not canonical Orthodoxy, but what we would call Byzantine Catholics, and that's what Orthodoxy is. Orthodoxy is Byzantine Catholicism. We profess one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Based on the first 1,000 years of how we were together and united. And then within the Roman Rite, the Byzantine, Eastern Catholics, Greek Catholics, those are the ones who are in communion with the Pope, so to speak.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So they're just branches out. I mean, you got to really pay attention to where the branches lead to in some of these discussions.
Right, yeah. So there's East and West. Like within the church, there's East and West. I think Pope John Paul said, the Orthodoxy and Catholicism are the East and West. They are the lungs of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just beautiful expressions of Christianity. Within Roman Catholicism, there's this thing called lumen gentium, like illumination. And so there is a need within their theology to try to understand in detail every little thing. Within Holy Orthodoxy, we don't focus on that. We focus on understanding the mysteries of Christ and not trying to put everything into a dogma, and not trying to make everything dogmatic, and not try to explain everything in detail to where it confuses us.
Right.
No, we want to experience Christ in the way that we know. And when we try to explain things, well, just like with life, you can apply this to anything in life. Right. Sometimes in life, you just have to be able to experience things. How do you quantify? How do you quantify a roller coaster ride? How do you put that down to detail?
Yeah. So, interesting to know your thought process on. I'm going to take a couple. Like I said, hello, Rosie. Welcome to Squirrel Moment 101.
Yeah.
So I told you I've traveled quite a few places, as you have. And one of the things that I have seen are a lot of the hieroglyphic or just glyphic markings of older generations, older societies that post, even like in the Egyptian and stuff like that, even their glyphs, they post their gods or whatever else. But then some of them have something that you would identify as a UFO.
Right.
How does this all kind of tie into place to where the thought process is in Orthodox? Is it something? I mean, I know we're not just thinking that we can possibly be the only ones everywhere.
Right. So I mean, So I'm not going to be canonical, or I'm not going to be, a theological person right now. I'm just going to be human, right? So I believe that these things exist. I do believe that there are other beings out there, or UFOs, or what you call them. But from my patristic understanding from the church fathers, what we know is these UFOs could potentially be what fallen angels were. When they fell from heaven, when they rebelled against God, they fell into different parts of the universe, or the
Right.
galaxy, or whatever it's called.
Yep.
And so these could be those sorts of things. We don't have all the answers to everything. And so to say that we do, I mean, I think it's a fallacy. I'm not sure what they are. I can tell you that the cases that I've worked that were UFO in nature were darker and sinister. And there were some of the most uncomfortable things. A case in point, my very first case when I used to be part of the Warren Legacy Foundation was a UFO case. This individual and their partner came to us with compelling evidence about time loss and sorts of things, and calcified rice in their throat.
Wow.
And when the doctors would go remove it, it would disappear, and the doctors wouldn't have an explanation. They also sent me over some documents that were notarized by the hospital saying, we don't understand what happened, but your digital copies and your hard backup medical copies of your medical records have been destroyed. And the hospital sent the pictures with, what's the notarized. So I think there's something to it. I just don't know what it is, but just because these things are out here too, doesn't mean, we lose our faith.
Right.
That's part of the mystery of this universe. That's part of the mystery of this existence.
Yeah.
I can't quantify it. I don't really know what it is, but for me, in my opinion, I just think that they're not good beings.
Right. Yeah. And I just think it's interesting that they've been logged through history.
Yeah.
By so many different nations and so many different, time frames, that it's been crazy. And for everyone to kind of see that. And so I'm always fascinated by what other people's opinions are when that discussion comes up, because I go to a location out in New Mexico, and there are tons of rocks out there that all have them. And I actually took pictures of them all, but a lot of them show their animals and stuff like that. But then they show beings that look like they are from outer space, and I'm just like, wow, how did you guys get these pictures?
I mean, they could be angelic beings.
Right.
I mean, there is this theory that when the Great Flood happened, the Nephilim, walked the earth, and they allegedly populated with humanity.
Right.
And so there's that theory as well. So that could be that. So I saw this YouTuber a few months back who was trying to explain that, when Moses landed on the mountain of Seth and they moved and they started progressing and they started making civilization, which is ancient Mesopotamia, allegedly from this theorist, the Nephilim were still around. And so when people migrated to different parts of the world, the Nephilim were with them and guided them, right? And they became their gods, and that's how that specific religion started.
Yeah, that's I actually did a talk with that. With now I'm drawing a blank on her name, but Jessica the Cryptid Huntress. We talked about that, and we started having a background on that. Yeah, Tori Rock, by the way, is here, and she says hi.
Oh, I know Tori. Hey, Tori, it's been a while.
And she says, yeah, Anunnaki is her specialty. So
Zachariah Sitchin, to ride a pale horse.
Yeah. So oh, I'm sorry. I had a pinned question back here that I wanted to go. So Stuart is asking, and I know this is kind of what we were gonna get into anyways at some point. So we'll just have Stuart break the seal on this one. He's saying, what has he experienced in the paranormal?
I mean, define experienced.
So I would ask. For me, my question is going to lean towards, because of the fact of your faith and what you do and everything else, is what have you dealt with exorcisms, either through home exorcisms, person's exorcism, anything demonic? Because I know that word gets thrown around a lot when it's actually not, and we fight that a lot, even as investigators and talk shows, as show hosts. That's a word that
I mean that word is just tossed around like candy,
right?
And we have to be really careful with that. from a patristic understanding, we have to be able to be within a parameter of education and theology and the state of grace to where we can identify what the demonic is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had several experiences. I've assisted like on over 300 intakes, cases, assessments, that sort of stuff. And I would say 2 of them were actual genuine demonic possession with the manifestations happening in front of us.
Wow.
There was one particular time where this individual was so oppressed that during the conversation, they became catatonic and their eyes turned completely black. And this person knew things about me that no one else should have. And I was in plain clothes. One of the other experiences that I had was, I was assisting. We were doing a deliverance, not an exorcism. We do deliverances, really.
Right.
Because exorcism within Orthodoxy is not as sensationalized.
Right.
Yeah, it's more liturgy, it's more prayer. We use the prayers of St. John Chrysostom, St. Basil the Great. And so our focus is always the individual. Like we'll know and we'll see that there's something there,
Right.
So we'll see the manifestation. We'll see that individual walk up the wall like it happened to us, but we'll still pray, so we don't let that bother us because we're in a state of prayer and contemplative state. So, I mean, I've experienced a couple of different things, but to me, it's always just part of the journey, There's nothing that's like, oh, well, I mean, I've experienced a couple of different things. I've experienced shadow figures. I've seen EVPs. But I think for me, the most horrifying experience was a few years ago, about 5 years ago. A family came to us asking for help. They had a child, a developmentally disabled child that was within their 20s,
Mm-hmm.
who had double schizophrenia and had autism and that sort of thing. And they came to us saying, hey, you know what? We need some help. Our child is complaining that they are seeing things. There was auditory and visual hallucinations. And so, we took that seriously, considering that there was an individual that was disabled.
Right.
So when we got on that call, it became problematic because the family was asking for a second opinion. There was a team that came the week before, a paranormal team that came the week before with one of their psychic mediums who got certified online a few weeks before as a psychic. They came in, they did an investigation, charged them $1,000 or $3,000. And this psychic medium told their developmentally disabled child that they had 7,000 legions of demons because that's what they felt. So we had the phone call and we tried talking them down. And so we felt comfortable at this time within the conversation because we didn't want to exasperate or bring up any feelings with the family. The child was there listening in the sense, the best way that they could, being autistic, having, so many medical conditions. We just wanted to close the call and reconvene within a few weeks. This individual, this child, developmentally disabled child, still had some function and was able to function and do things on their own. So a few weeks go by, I would say about a month. We're trying to reach out to the family, and the family does not reach back out to us. Finally, they get a hold of us, and they're like, hey, Father Ken, we can't work with you. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Did we do something wrong? And they go, no, our child unfortunately committed suicide and left a death note. I'm taking my life because I have 7,000 legions of demons inside of me. So that is the most horrific thing that I've experienced. Until this day, it bothers me. It bothers me because you look around the corner and there's a paranormal team around the corner. If I had $1 for every paranormal team that was out there, I'd be probably a millionaire. And there's a lot of good people out there. But intention doesn't mean good. Just because you have a good intention doesn't mean you're going to do good. You have to understand psychology. You have to understand what emotional disturbances are. You need to understand the dichotomy of a family. You need to understand, where they're at financially, socially, economically. And you have to have experience with this, and that's why I always affirm, training is important. As a board certified mental health coach with a master's in counseling and, a postgraduate degree, a theological degree, a doctorate in theology and religion, I'm against this notion of paranormal teams going in and trying to identify something as demonic, because if you don't believe in it, how can you identify it? So it just becomes one of those words. According to our patristic teachings and our faith, only priests can identify what a demonic energy is, because we have the training, we have theological training, we have formation, we have seminary training. we also have thousands of years of church history behind us to help us identify. And so as clergy, and I don't mean to be offensive to other, but that's how we view it. And we know that there are people out there with great intentions that actually have skills too that are not within the faith. And kudos to them for doing great work.
Right.
But the issue that we have is we have unqualified individuals that are making this determination without understanding. What is a demon?
Right.
What is oppression? How do you quantify that? Like, how do you come to that assumption? Just because something feels negative doesn't mean that it's evil. How do you know it's not psychosomatics? How do you know it's not your emotional influence? The problem that I have with most people who call themselves gifted, they're like, I feel this, I feel that, I sense this, I sense that. And I ask them, do you believe in the faith? Are you faithful? Well, because if you don't believe in the faith, then how can you call in on angels and not believe in demons and vice versa? And that's the problem that we have. It's a distorted truth to try to help them, make them feel good about themselves because they are not producing, they're not producing any fruit. The success of an investigation should not be determined by the evidence that you capture. It should be determined by the success and the fruit of the outcome. Is there peace? Is there clarity? So my job is not to investigate the paranormal. My job as clergy is to restore the environment, bring peace and restoration with the spiritual authority from Christ and the church. So it's a little different. That was a mouthful. Sorry.
Yeah, and
I go on a tangent sometimes because I get passionate about this.
That's good, and that's exactly what I wanted, because we need to hear it from what you do. I mean, because I can go into the small part of it. Like I said, I talk about Bill Slevin. He has a lot of knowledge and everything else and stuff like that, and he gives us little pieces of information about ways to identify what you're dealing with. Is this demonic? Is this not demonic? But he's been doing it for a long time as well, and he's actually seen him and everything else.
Yeah. I love Bill. I've endorsed him. He's a good friend. He's a wonderful colleague. So I mean, he's just a wonderful individual. He's also a great parapsychologist.
Yeah, and I was honored when he asked me to be his Midwest director for the PERS team. But he also knows that I'm not going to go out on my own if I feel like I'm over my head and just try to go rogue. There's a big enough team of everybody that I can reach back to and go, look, this is what's going on. Can we analyze this? Can we look at this another way? Because I don't know if I have the right information or not. Which I think a lot of people are too arrogant to fess up to. They're like, no, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. But do you? Right.
And that's a wonderful point, because I've had this conversation with many wonderful individuals who honestly have a wonderful heart. And for me, this is a ministry. It's a vocation. And I think most people that, like Tori said, the ones who don't get noticed, they're in this for the right reasons. Many people have wonderful skills. They have wonderful abilities. And I'm not trying to diminish that, but I think most people can agree, being trained and being qualified and understanding. But most people, who allegedly have experience have said, well, I've never encountered a demon. Well, how do you know that?
Right.
How do you know you've never encountered a demon? How do you not know? Maybe that spirit that was friendly was demonic and it was tricking you. But because you don't believe and you don't have faith and you don't have spiritual discernment, how can you be able to identify something? And that takes time. It takes prayer. It takes, humbling yourself and understanding that I've got to let my ego go. You want to be able to bring peace and solution. So for me, it's not about the evidence that we capture. It's about the peace and the restoration that comes after the encounter. Yeah,
and I'm going to touch on that back in a second, but I want you to answer a question for me. So Laura, the one who said good morning, she's going to work. She's asked a question, and I wanted to get to her before she has to leave for work, if you're okay with that. So she says, do you believe in spirit cloud shaping, like when we see Jesus, angels, animals, and the shapes of the clouds and stuff like that?
So cloud shaping, that's a really good question. So like actual clouds in the sky or physical manifestations?
I think she might be talking clouds, but I'm not 100% sure. So she's still be on here.
Honestly, for me, what I tell people, if you see a rainbow and that rainbow reminds you of your mom and you think that's your mom, then it probably is your mom, right? So I can't
Yeah.
tell you otherwise. So it's all about your personal interpretation and how you feel.
Yeah.
Um,
She says in the sky.
yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah.
says in the sky.
For my faith, within my faith, I believe that wonderful things are always happening around us. And yes, I believe that the skies can be shaped like animals, like cats, like angels. I think it's quite
Hmm.
possible, and I don't think there's anything that's crazy about it. I think it's a natural thing. So much of what we believe in is intertwined with the supernatural, the divine. So, why are we
Right.
limiting our creator or God or whatever it is to just a certain aspects of humanistic experiences? It's
Right.
possible, yes.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's one thing that I've noticed with people is that, and everyone does it. I mean, we're human. Everyone does it. They limit it themselves to
Right,
tangible. Um, and that's because that's the
right,
human nature. What can I see? What
yeah,
can I feel? What can I hear?
yeah.
What can I touch? Type of thing. So that's what they limit themselves to, rather than opening up to the other
The
possibilities
qualitative
that
state.
are
Yes, because
right.
there's quantitative and there's
Yes.
qualitative. So the
Yeah.
quantitative, although you might be able to measure some things, just because you capture something doesn't mean it is what it is. But we have to look
Hmm.
beyond that within a qualitative state. You can measure happiness, you can measure joy, you can see that, it's a tangible thing. So, and it's true. I
Right.
think many people focus on gathering evidence, and which is a wonderful thing. I'm not saying that it isn't. I think in the long run, it can help us potentially identify what we're dealing with, but that's not a one all and be all. Capturing evidence in
Right.
EVPs, it's so much more than that. I think the
Yeah.
whole team has to be in tune spiritually, mentally, emotionally, to be able to, to understand that physical measurements aren't always the best resolution.
Right. Yeah. So I know you looked at this one because you were reading on the sign, but so Ajang is actually over in Indonesia. So she's up early in the morning to watch our
Yes.
show. I call her my sister. We've been following each other forever.
Right.
So she and I are back and forth. So she says, Father Ken, I've experienced possession 3 times in different versions and at different times. I even experienced black magic possession sent to my father. But is it true what's depicted in exorcist movies that someone can be lifted up?
Yes, levitation is possible. I've seen it during my encounters when we're doing deliverances. I've had people crawl up the wall like Spider-Man. I've had a couple of different things happen, but it's quite possible, especially in Indonesia. Indonesia, Sri Lanka, those different parts of that world. The magic is strong out there. I mean, the magic is really, really strong. Honestly,
Right.
when you see like Netflix movies with like Indonesian possession, um, I have to turn it off half the time because the magic out there is powerful. I mean, there's a lot of strong influence, just like a lot of the work that I do is in the Spanish countries. And so much of the influence is either based on Catholicism or Santeria, Umbanda, Kimbanda. That's their identity. So they are superstitious, and that superstitious also comes with weights. It comes with a
Oh,
heavy and
yeah.
strict belief system that people grow up on. And so I believe that the manifestations in the supernatural become more powerful within that identity,
Right.
within that region, within that culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, traveling, I've witnessed some of the
Yeah,
different religious happenings on my own. And I was like, well, this is different. This is something I'm not used to seeing. But I'd say it was blessed. I was blessed enough to take part in it and watching
yeah,
it and seeing it
yeah.
happen. But it wasn't happening to
Right,
me. So,
right.
you
Yeah,
know, um,
yeah,
yeah. And Laura comes back and she says, I mean, I've been a medium since I was
yeah.
5. Could have been earlier. I believe in God. When I speak with people and get messages from the other side to help others, I always ask for confirmation. I don't ever get negative experiences. And then she says, and because you can't read everything on there, and always pray for peace.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw that.
but yeah, because
That's beautiful.
I'm the same way because I'm a medium and I'm also a
Right,
psychic. And so that kind of happens with the same thing. I always have to confirm what I'm talking
right.
to in some way, shape, or
and
form.
and, and that's smart,
Uh,
and that's beautiful. Like, you know I believe that there are many wonderful, gifted people like you out there, and Laura. Like for me, this is a divine calling, and it's how you use these gifts. We call that the spirit of discernment. A seer, being able
Right.
to see things, being revealed by God, the Holy Spirit, that sort of stuff. And so those are wonderful gifts to have, and I believe that they're out there. But obviously, like with every field or whatever, there are individuals who may have these gifts and distort them for evil.
Right. That yeah,
Yeah.
and we come across
Yeah.
those. Nikki and I will come across
Yeah.
those when we are. What the funny thing is, we come across those mostly when we are at shows, at like
Yeah.
paracons or at like type of fest, and people walk in and they walk by you and they're carrying such a negative energy or something along those lines, and all of a sudden it jumps to someone else because it's done living off of that person as a parasite. It goes to something that's
Yeah.
stronger,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden now you have to deal with something else that just came
Right.
in.
Right.
Um, yeah, see, this is where Stuart comes in, and he's a comedian. That's a psychic, and so then not a C. So
I love it.
I always have to remind him that he's not a comedian; he's a comedian because all of his
Dyslexia.
jokes.
Yeah.
All of his,
That's why
all of his
I
jokes.
don't write to Santa on Christmas. I get someone else. You're saying
Right?
dyslexia.
And Laura says, my mom, when she passed, sent me messages of her and I together from birth till her death. I am blessed for sure. I knew she passed before my brother called
Right.
me.
Right.
So yeah, Jericho wants to know. Hi,
Hey, Jericho.
Jericho.
How are you?
Jericho wants to know. Can I ask for your thoughts on working with tarot?
Yeah. So I'll give you my thought, and it's my comments are always meant to be like non-judgmental. For us, it's still a form of divination, and so what I tell people is, if you're going to practice those things, just be really careful. Just understand what you're doing and understand that you're responsible. That you are responsible for leading other people. In that sense, people are coming to you for advice, and so if you choose to
Right.
use divination tools, just be careful. I'm not going to sit here and judge you because that's not my job, but I will warn people, just be careful. Like with everything else in
Yeah.
life. Do I necessarily agree with it? No, but I understand people use different tools and people have different skills and abilities, and I'm not here to knock it, but just be careful.
Bye, Laura. Have a good day at work or a good
Good
night at
night.
work. So that and I have this thought process. My mind goes everywhere all the time. Um, and I have come across people because a lot of the people that I'm around, they work with and they believe in the power of stones, crystal stones, whatever you want to call them. They hold certain abilities, certain powers, whatever else to help calm, to help protect, anything along those
Right.
lines. And my thought process is, I mean, I literally have I'm literally sitting here by a whole handful of
Yeah.
stones. And my thought, now I just want your opinion on
Okay.
this because I appreciate all opinions, because people are like, well, that's not you being religious. And I have an entirely different thought process that, you know what? God has given us tools that we can use to help others.
Right.
Now, if God made everything to include these stones that are within the earth, is there a way that he has given us these stones to learn how to use them to help others because he's the one who gave them to us?
Well, and that's a really good question. And I think that depends on belief, but I agree with you. I often tell people, it's not the stones themselves that really carry the power, but these rocks and these crystals, these natural things, they're creation.
Mhm.
They're created by God. What I often tell
Right.
people is, for us, we worship the Creator, not creation. Right? That's the word we're
Right.
told in Scripture that. But those objects can be a beautiful reminder of creation. I have rocks,
Mhm.
I have stones. I think they're beautiful. I'll pick up a rock and I'll say, "Wow, this is really beautiful," and I feel
Right.
good because I feel like it's something that God created. Then I'm just admiring the
Mhm.
creation, but I'm not worshiping it. So yes, I think
Right.
there are different tools that can be used.
Right. And from my thought process is if I hold a piece of jet, which is a black
Yeah,
stone, and black is normally not identified as a protection stone, or my shungite that sits in front of me. Um, that is something that God gave me on this earth that I can physically hold, that is a part of Him, that I can say, you know what, He gave me this, and I'm using it for this
Right.
use that he has given me the option to use as. Now, I will tell you, for me, I have tons of
Yeah.
stones, and they're mostly because they're all
Yeah.
pretty. Um, because if I put a stone in my pocket or I wear one on my wrist or anything else, that normally means I'm going to give it away to somebody because they need it more than I do. Because I don't wear them for my protection or anything else. I normally have them for others' protections
Right.
because they feel they need
Right.
it. But they don't know that until I'm out there in the field, and all of a sudden, I mean, even the perfect example is I'm at the airport, and I have on this beautiful lapis, what was it, lapis, obsidian, and hematite
Yeah.
bracelet, and I'm just wearing it because it looked good with my
Right.
outfit, and I really liked it. It was, and this little girl came over and she couldn't speak English. She was a little Spanish girl. She was with her
Yeah.
family, and she wanted my bracelet, so I gave it to her. She was playing with it and
Yeah.
everything else. And she wore it and she liked it and everything else. Well, then her parents went to give it back. And my thought process was, no, that bracelet was meant for that daughter. She's the one who came to me and asked me for my bracelet. So that's now hers because it means something to
Yeah.
her. Um,
That's
so,
beautiful. Like I love that, and because I work with Father Bob Bailey, co-director for the Holy Sword
mhm.
Apostolate, and we share a lot of similar thoughts, right? When it comes to like stones and things. I mean, those are just beautiful things, and they remind you of creation, and giving that away, can make somebody smile. Uh, I mean,
Yeah,
I just think for me, because I try not to cross theological boundaries, in the sense where I know what my faith is, but I understand that people
right.
have their faiths and their opinions. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, at the
yeah,
core, those are just beautiful gifts. They're just beautiful things from creation that God has given us. And so why not have a rock? I have a rock from Wounded Warrior Project. A few years ago, we did a Wounded Warrior retreat because I'm a disabled veteran, and so
mhm.
we picked up rocks from the dam. We did a
Yeah,
5 mile hike, and we were sweating, and we were just letting it all go and supporting one another, and we gave each other these rocks. And so when I pick up that rock from the quarry from my brother that gave me this rock from Wounded Warrior, another wounded veteran, it means something to me. It feels good. I think of God. I think of Him. I think of the experiences. No, I don't worship the rock, but I'm like, you know what? This is
right.
just a beautiful reminder of the beauty in life.
So, and that's like, so Stuart comes in with Father Ken, doesn't everything depend on belief, which is what we were saying. Stones
Yeah,
have a vibration, and all things have a vibration, and can give that vibration to help.
correct. It's
So,
it's all about what you believe. Listen, my belief is subjective for me, right? What I believe is what I believe in,
right,
and so I'll never force my belief. I know for me that my faith teaches me, and I believe in it. I know it works, but I'm not impervious to the other belief systems and the
yeah,
other thoughts out there. So yeah, I mean, if that brings you happiness, comfort, and joy, yeah, I mean, we all have energy. Everything is energy.
hmm,
Everything is energetic. There is some sort of energy within creation.
right,
It's God's divine breath over creation, and so yeah.
yeah. So, okay, now we're about to go to the other side of the house,
All right.
because you brought it up. You said energy, and I'm about to flip the script completely, and no one's going to be ready for this
Okay.
because I have an interesting take on this, but I would love to hear your thought process on this.
Okay.
Um, so we know we have matter; everything's made up of matter, but then we
Right.
also have what is known as dark matter.
Right.
What is the thought process on dark matter in religion?
So I mean, I haven't seen anything from the church fathers or anything that would lead me to understand dark matter, but what I can ascertain from the interpretation, good energy, bad energy. Uh, we are capable of inherent evil. We are capable of doing things. We have free will.
Hmm.
We can choose to do good and we can choose to do bad. So, I mean, I think maybe that's where I'm leaning towards. Maybe I'm off the point, but I mean, I wouldn't be able to quantify or give you an example of good dark matter, good matter. I mean, for us, matter is matter.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, matter is matter. How
yeah,
you choose to label it is it's up to your understanding.
yeah. And on the scientific side of that,
Yeah,
they play that based off of the balance. Like some people have the yin and yang. They
you're
kind of
right, right.
balance the matter off the dark matter. There has to be matter. There has to be a
Yeah,
dark matter in order for the matter to exist. And
right, right.
it's almost like the darkness and the light. You have to
Yeah,
understand what darkness is before you understand what light is.
Right, right.
So it all plays into the same lines, and it's interesting to me because there's so many different theories, religious, scientific, just whatever you see around, your common knowledge. There's good, there's bad, there's dark, there's light, there's yin, but it's all a balance, and
Yeah,
it all plays out scientifically. Even in the religious world, it all plays out scientifically to help balance everything.
right. And what we would call that in Greek is called nous. Nous is the spiritual intellect. Now, that is the word for the spiritual intellect. What the spirit can perceive, what the spirit can try to quantify, what the spirit experiences,
Right.
The intelligence of the spirit, spiritual intellect, more like a discernment, how you discern that, how you understand what that is, how you interpret that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting to try to tell people, well, if everything was good, then wouldn't that be better? Well, then how would you know everything was good if you didn't have evil or is bad? You know, so
Yeah, I mean, good is subjective, and I think with humanity, this idea of this wonderful utopia, but without tragic experiences, without trauma, without going through bad times, I don't think as humans we grow and we learn,
right,
because then everything becomes simplistic, and we see that a lot. We see many families, we see many people who are just spoiled, rotten, and they have everything they need, and as soon as something bad happens, they crumble. They crumble because they don't know how to deal with it. And so, I mean, I guess we can relegate dark matter into that as well.
Yeah.
There's a good and there's a bad. And so when the negative things happen to you, like, how do you cope with it? How do you understand? How do you perceive? Well, I mean, you say good is good and bad is bad, but how do we know?
right. Without having one or the other, how would you know that it was that way or
Right,
not?
exactly.
Exactly, and it's interesting because I have to explain to a lot of people, without one, you can't have the other. Well,
Right.
and then the funniest conversation I ever turn to, it always falls back to religion on me, because people bring this up and they said, "Well, isn't heaven just pure good?" And I'm like, "Yes, but what would you have that without hell?" I mean, what there's your good and your bad right there. There's the atypical people
That's truth right there.
you know.
And sometimes it's hard to have that discussion, because even when you talk about heaven, it's like, well, it sucks, because it's like, well, if God really loves me, then why am I going to hell? Or if you believe in that stuff, I go, no, he's not sending you to hell, you choose to go to hell.
Yeah,
and a lot of things too, I think theologically speaking, we have to clear something up. I've been seeing a lot of posts where people are like, oh, going to church and prayer is there's a ritual behind it, right?
right,
But they would compare, liturgy and prayer and offering and Eucharist and the Mass, as occultism in the way. And I tell people no, because our faith is not transactional. Our faith is an open invitation. When we go to church and we participate in the liturgy and we participate in the Mass, it's an open invitation. It's not like, well, if I go pray, then I'm going to get something good, or if I offer this to you, the gods are going to bless me,
right.
or they're going to punish me. So the transactional faith, people so often say, well, the church is transactional faith. It really isn't.
Right.
We have free will.
Yeah.
And so that also ties into the dark matter, the good and the bad, synergy.
Mm-hmm. So Stuart is asking, could that be the apple in Eden? Everything was good until the eating of the apple.
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask my wife.
That is a good answer. And Rosie says, when I have bad happen to me, I thank it and say it needs to move on. It has no purpose in my life.
Yes, that's really the story and the message that I'm trying to convey. People often come to us with these dark tales of horror and spirits and affliction, but it's like, you have control, you have the authority,
right?
You just have to find your faith, and we'll help you get back to where you need it, because you actually are more powerful than you think. The supernatural is not something to fear. Yeah, we see Hollywood sensationalizes demons and that sort of thing, but they only have the power that they're given to, right? So there is a hierarchy, there's a spiritual authority. They can only do so much. So they shouldn't be, and they're not as scary as people think they are. Yes, the experiences can be horrific on a humanistic level, but we have divine authority over these things, and we shouldn't be afraid. So yes, I applaud you. You know what? We're good. I'm moving forward. A
Yeah.
lot of bad things happen to me, just random things. And I'm like, nope, not doing it. Not today, buddy. I
Right.
keep on pushing forward.
Yeah.
When you give it life, when you start breathing into it and you start feeding it, then now all of a sudden that becomes its own entity, its own being, even if it's a mental thing. We often put ourselves and give this narrative that everything is supernatural, when in reality it's natural, but it's really hard for us to accept and be accountable for our own actions.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's just I used it, and I haven't always done this, but very much lately I have done it when I'm looking at it as a learning tool. You have learned. I've taught it. I have
You
learned a
learned
lesson,
it.
and yeah, I have learned it. And now it is time for me to move on with that knowledge that said, okay, well, I learned something from that. It was bad. Now I'm going to go, and I will not make that mistake again. Or if I do,
Right,
I'll have a better way to face it, type of
right,
thing.
right.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just the way life is. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? The
yeah.
apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
So what brought you into? I know that we talked about your paranormal side. We talked about how you came into the Orthodox side. What brought you into like the Warren Foundation and now the new Warren Foundation and into how did you get
Right.
involved with them?
So I joined the Warren, originally previously the Warren Legacy Foundation, about 5 years ago. I was finishing up seminary school, and I thought, well, I wanted to join because I understood and I knew about the Warrens and I knew they were faith based. But my whole idea was to come in like as a spiritual advisor, to be able to counsel people, provide chaplaincy, and use my training to be able to help others.
Mhm.
And for a good while, it happened, and then I decided to move on, and I'll leave it at that.
Mhm.
Now with the Warren Society, I'll be able to, use what I've learned to be able to help others. And
Yeah.
I guess what brought me into this was like there was a whisper in my ear. There was a divine calling, being able to help those who are broken. So it doesn't matter if it's supernatural phenomena. It doesn't matter if it's paranormal. It doesn't matter. The core of the problem has to be resolved. There's always an underlying issue.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is always the individual. We remove the activity, we remove the claims, we remove the EVP, we remove all of those other things. And what are we looking at? We're looking at individuals who are terrified, who are broken, who are hurt. And so if we can help heal them along the way and give them this process to rediscover their life and be fruitful and happy again, then that's the most important thing.
Right.
I find that through those experiences, through the counseling, through the chaplaincy, oftentimes a few weeks later, a few months later, that activity doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ingrid, I want to read this one out to you too. Ingrid posts, I'm so happy my daughter was going through some very bad things. I'd say pray. She has
Right.
finally found God and church and prayer again, and now she's thriving. So,
Amen.
yeah.
Hey, Ingrid, I know Ingrid. I've known Ingrid for many years, and she's a follower and a friend. That's really the core thing for me. And not trying to get too religious, but with thousands of years of church history and documentation, we know that prayer works. We know that the Eucharist works. We know that going to confession and that sort of thing, or going to your pastor, having your pastor pray for you, getting involved in a spiritual community, reinforcing your life, those things work. And, and that's important. Like for me, prayer is one of the most important things. Within Holy Orthodoxy, we have to pray 3 times a day,
Right.
And in between. There's morning prayers, there's afternoon prayers, there's evening prayers, and prayer is everything. And prayer is not transactional. Prayer is not, Lord God, if you get rid of this headache, I'll go to church. Lord
Right.
God, if you give me
Stop
this
making
job,
a
then
deal.
I'm going to go to church. It becomes
Yeah.
transactional.
Yeah.
Prayer is just an honest, open communication. Just say,
Yeah.
hey, look, I am going through it. I am struggling. I have no idea what I'm doing. Just put it all out there. And we as priests, persona Christi, can help you circumnavigate those feelings and hopefully give you a voice of reason.
So, what are the thought processes? Again, it's just strictly what you guys assume or believe or whatever else.
Yeah.
Do people have to physically go to a church to be um, faithful to to Christ and everything else? Is it something? Is it something that happens along that line?
Well, many people would say, I have God in my heart. I don't need to go to church.
Right.
And there's a fallacy in that logic. I actually gave a homily about this a few weeks ago. The reason why it is important to go to church is because the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, they are one, right? It's the synergy. There are three in one, right? And so when you go to church, you're going to an environment where the Holy Spirit and God lives, and you're going there with other like-minded individuals, right? And, it's important that you get that community. Praying at home is wonderful. Reading the Bible is wonderful. But when you go and you gather, right? It says where three or more gather, my presence is there. And I firmly believe that there's a false logic. And I don't need to go to church. Yes. If you're faithful, if you're a Christian, you absolutely need to go to church because you need that spiritual sustenance. You need to be able to hear that message. You need to be able to be with a like-minded body of individuals who are going through the same things you are, who can offer you that support, and together there's strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know that you have to get going.
Yeah, dinner time. Dinner time.
We've been going for an hour, so I think this
Yeah.
I think this is a good place to stop. But I'm going to make this. This is a good place to stop for now because I will ask you to come on at another time.
I'd love to come on,
and I may even try to steal you and a couple of the other people to come on, and we'll do a group.
Right.
Of this, maybe we'll grab a couple of people with the Warren Foundation and bring a handful of us on, and we can all sit and talk. I would just want to go for this one really quick with Rosie, really quickly. She says, I grew up Catholic and went to Catholic school, so it was 2 times a week for 6 years, maybe too much. And I believe everything happens for a reason, and there's a reason you came on, and I was here. So, perfect.
Praise be to God. Here's the thing. Can I say a message to Rosie?
You can, yeah, absolutely.
Rosie, you've probably been hurt. You've probably been tired by the mundane, and maybe there was a point where you didn't understand what that relationship was. Maybe you got tired. Maybe you didn't have the proper relationship where you weren't taught properly. Maybe something happened. Most times, bad things happen. And I'm sorry that you went through that, and I'm sorry that you've been hurt. But come back to the faith. Because humans, we're not perfect, but Christ is.
Beautiful. Yeah. So she says thank you. I want to thank you for coming on. For those who came in late or anything else, and for those who are going to rewatch this later, please listen to the messages given here. This is very important. Some of you may even re-listen to it again, even though you've listened to it once. But I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate your time and your information shared with the audience, with that call of my family. So
yes.
So I know you are part of the family, just so you know. Once you're on here, you become part of the family.
Thank you so much.
So now you're brought into it.
Yes.
Squirrel moments and all. But for anyone who wants to reach out to you, that I have this. I've been having this scroll on the bottom the whole time.
Right.
It's holyswordapostle.com. Apostolate.com, excuse me. And that's where you can find Father Ken. So you can feel free to reach out, go out to the site, look at it. And if you have questions, I always make this offer. If you have questions, you can reach out to you and ask questions. But if you're unsure and you're just uncomfortable reaching out to Father Ken, you can always send the questions to me, and I will reach out to Father Ken and I will pass them along. And as Zhang says, I love this show. I can hear from a priest. So, again, being out from Indonesia, it's a little different culture out there. So it's interesting for her to hear some of the people that we bring on. So I'm happy.
Right. Yeah, in Indonesia, the culture is different. It's very unique out there.
It is, yes. But go enjoy your dinner. Thank you again for coming on. I know you and I will be in touch more often because I have some things that I need you to take care of for me for blessing.
No. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always available.
But other than that, go have a great night. Thank you again. And I will talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon. Be blessed, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later. All right, everyone. That's the show. thank you again for coming on. Let me throw this up as I normally do once I find it. So here's all my wonderful stuff. Stuff I never learned from a school book. It just goes on and on. It's easy to find. It's stuff I never learned on everything. YouTube, at Stuff I Never Learned. Facebook, facebook.com, Stuff I Never Learned. Twitch TV is just Stuff I Never Learned. Kick.com is at Stuff I Never Learned. And Instagram is at Stuff I Never Learned. So you can find everything for me right there. My email, stuffineverlearned@gmail.com. Please feel free to send me messages. If you have questions, you have comments, you have concerns, maybe you have someone that you'd like to see on here, and I can do my best to try to reach out to them and see if they want to come on. Speaking of that, I don't have it memorized. So let me go out and look to see who I have coming on next. I am off, I believe, another week before I come back on, simply because I'm traveling a little bit. Oh, no, I do have one coming up. 4th of August, I have on a gentleman that I met. His name is Vince Killian. And he is a fantastic, wonderful guy, full of energy. And he has a show on something called beacon.com. It's a new streaming site. I got to make sure exactly what the name of it is, but there's a new streaming site. Not all it is paranormal stuff. And it's not the big Hollywood type of stuff. It's the realistic, no shit, kind of what we're used to seeing when we talk paranormal and stuff like that. So there's a streaming service out there. They have about 200 different shows going on. I would advise you to go look at, I think it's called beacon.com. I'll have to do a little more research on myself, but he's on there. He has a show going on there. And he also has his own paranormal investigation team. And he was a fantastic guy to meet when Nikki and I went out to Broadhead Manor out there in Broadhead, Wisconsin for the Paranormal Rockdown. He's one of the first people that we met on Friday and introduced himself to us. We got to know him pretty well, so I'm really happy he's coming on. And I hope you all return next Monday to see him on the show. He'll be a lot of good energy. I'll be sure to build the advertisement out as I normally do, share it out with everybody so you know when it is and who it is. You can look him up early and everything else. Other than that, everybody stay safe, protect each other. Again, reach out to me whenever you need to. Much love, and I will see you in a week.